Hey guys, it is Christine. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello. I am mama to 3 little ones. My eldest is currently 4.5. I have a 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old, and an 11-month-old baby. And today I want to talk to you about how to stop your toddler from getting out of bed. I have a little bit of experience with this. I now have 2 kids that sleep in twin-size beds. But they've been out of their cribs for a good long while. And will be transitioning my 11-month-old next year into a big girl bed. So I have definitely had to learn what works and what does not. But I want to share my tips with you to hopefully make it easier for you to teach your child to stay in their bed. Before we jump into the hows, let's talk about why. Because some people would say that there's no reason for you to expect your toddler to stay in bed, that it's an unrealistic expectation and that you should just not fight it. Whatever, to each their own, let them do that. I just don't personally agree with that. I think children can be taught to be obedient and to listen and to stay in their bed, and I think there's good reason for that. Number 1 is safety. When I tell my children to go to bed at night, I want them to stay in their rooms because it is not safe for them to be out and gallivanting and doing all sorts of things. It also terrifies me to think that I might be asleep and my child is wandering the house, or even worse, leaving the house. And that does happen. It has happened. No judgment, okay? Things happen. Kids do crazy things. But that is a very solid reason to want to teach your child to stay in their bed. Number 2 is that they need to sleep. Okay, the more they're getting out of bed, the less sleep they're getting. And that's not good for them developmentally. They need that sleep. And so, again, I want to encourage my children to learn to stay in their beds so they can fall asleep. And then, finally, it is a break for the parents. You know, I am not all about this martyrdom in parenthood. We do a lot for our kids. We love our kids. No one has to question that when you say that you need a break. You know, it's for your insanity. We preach self-care. Part of self-care is having a break from everything around you, your sweet little darlings. And so it's totally fine to teach them to stay in their beds just so that you can get a break. That's fine. You don't need to feel guilty about that. It's totally fine. So now let's talk about how to teach them to stay in bed. First of all, it's a good idea to set the scene. Get them to wind down before they go to bed. You know, don't try and get them bouncing off the walls, which I think most mothers totally get that. You know, we try and get our children to relax. So having a nice relaxing bath. Although my kids don't relax in the bath, they like to play. But it's like a signal to them that bedtime's coming, you know what I mean? Maybe diffusing some essential oils. I don't do this a lot at all, but it is nice if you've got something to signal to the brain, again, that it's time for sleep. Basically, you want to get them ready for sleep, because if you're just going from full out play to okay, now you have to stay in your bed, they're going to be bouncing off the walls, and it's going to be a lot harder for them to actually wind down and fall asleep while staying in their bed. Number 2 is to have a routine for your child. Something that can be really difficult is having a toddler that is undertired, and so they have got a lot of fight in them. And you're going to really struggle to get them to stay in their beds and just do as they're told, because they're going to have a bunch of energy, and so it's going to be hard for them to wind down and go to sleep. So if you can try and make sure that they're getting enough exercise and that their routine allows them to get enough wake time before bedtime at night, that can be really helpful. Another thing to consider is not having too much stimulation and too much awake time, because an overtired toddler can be just completely unreasonable, and it's really difficult to enforce any sort of structure and boundaries and discipline if your child is overtired. Personally, I find it a little bit unfair to expect that of them. So try and make sure that you've got a balanced routine in place before you really push for this. Next is to invest in a grow clock or some kind of toddler clock. We've just always used the grow clock. I love it. We got it when my son was 18 months old. He's now 4.5. We still use it all the time. He probably doesn't need it anymore. I could teach him how to tell the time, but he shares a room with his 2-year-old sister, and so she uses it. Basically, the gist of most of these clocks is they change color depending on whether it's nighttime or it's awake time. And for our one, I really like it because you can set nap time as well. So for us, we say goodnight to Mr. Sun every night. I just press a couple buttons, Mr. Sun goes to sleep, and out come the stars. And it can function as a nightlight, or you can have it. If I look different, it's because my camera card filled up and I had to go and sort that out. So I'm back. Let's continue this discussion on keeping toddlers in their beds. We were talking about the grow clock, and yeah, the one I've got you can use as a night light or not, but when it is morning time, the sun will come back out. And I actually like it because it's got one big star and then it's got a bunch of other stars around it, and they disappear as the night goes on or as nap time goes on. And so the child actually has a bit of an idea of how close it is to morning time. And it also does have the actual time so you can teach your child the time as they get a bit older. But for us, it has worked really well. You can start using it at 18 months of age, and it just teaches your child when it's time to go to bed, when it's time to get up, because they have no concept of time, and which a lot of parents can attest to, but incorporating that is really helpful. There are quite a few others. I'll link a couple of the popular ones down below, but also they'll be in the blog post that is associated with this video, and I'll have that in the description for you. The next suggestion is one that can be controversial, which is interesting, but if you think about it logically, it's actually a good thing. That is to lock your child's door. And that sounds horrible. It sounds like cruel, like, oh my gosh, I'm locking my child in their room. Well, first of all, they were in a crib before, so they were fairly contained at that point. Secondly, actually from a fire safety standpoint, it is the safest way for your child, because you do not want your toddler to be out wandering around the house if there is a fire. You want to know exactly where they are. It's different for older children, entirely different. But for a child that does not understand how to get out of a house in case of a fire, you want to know where they are. So just, putting that aside, because I know some people are like, well, what if there's a fire? They can't get out. Well, I personally don't want my toddlers wandering around. So there's that. Also, if the door's locked, they can't get out the room. I've never had to do this with my children because the door handles are quite high. So by the time they were high enough to reach the door handles, they had well and truly learnt to stay in their beds and very much understood right from wrong and what not to do. So it's just a suggestion. If you do have an issue with your child getting out and like coming out of their room entirely, lock the door. And then also discipline. However you do that in your home, whatever it looks like to your family, to your child specifically, do that, because it just shouldn't be something that is rewarded when a child gets out of their bed. And in case, to counter anyone who's thinking, oh, well, if I discipline my child every time they get out of bed, then if they're sick or there's something wrong, no, it doesn't work that way. My children know that if they need to use the bathroom, they're allowed to get up and use the bathroom. If they're sick, usually they call for us. On the very odd occasion, they've come into our room. But our home is very small, so we can hear everything that's going on anyway. But yeah, typically they'll call for us if there's something wrong, or sometimes you just have like a sixth sense as a parent and you just know. But for the most part, yeah, they'll still come and get us. So don't worry about that. But for us, disciplining, it can take some time. So be consistent with it and realize that it's going to take time. Don't get frustrated at your child. They are learning. It's something new for them. It's a boundary that they're learning. And your job as a parent is to teach them not to get frustrated at their attempts to breach the boundary. There's another method that I wanted to mention. I haven't personally used it, but it is something that I've heard many parents have success with, and that is the super nanny method. Basically, it's a very gentle method of your child comes out, you take them back in, you tuck them back in, say goodnight, and I think you do that a couple of times. And then after that, if they keep coming out, you just take them by the hand, walk them back in, no chit chat. You're not really positively enforcing, but you're not negatively enforcing either. It's kind of a very neutral form of teaching your child to stay in their bed. And then you just do that until they stay in their bed and they fall asleep. And you have to have patience, that is for sure. You might want to just wait outside the door for them to come out, because they're probably gonna. But it is a method that I thought was worth mentioning, because especially for parents coming from more of like the gentle parenting approach, it may be something that you would look into doing as opposed to like a discipline. 2 more points I want to make before I finish. Number 1, stay consistent. Don't let them get away with it one time and then be strict the rest of the time. It's like, just be consistent, because it is really difficult for your child to learn something if you keep changing the rules on them. They're going to get frustrated. They're going to act up. They're probably going to get really emotional, and all of that's hard to deal with. So just do yourself and your child a favor and be consistent. I know it's tough, but it is worthwhile. And then also, don't doubt yourself. You're not doing anything mean. You're not doing anything unkind. You're teaching your child something healthy. It's a healthy behavior for them to learn to stay in their beds and to sleep the night through. There will be people who will tell me that I have unicorn children, But in all honesty, our children have slept in our bed like a handful of times, and only when they've been like really, really, really ill. And I'm not saying that that's the only right way to do it. It's not. And I have friends that co-sleep and they're very happily doing it. But if that is not something that you desire for your family, then it is totally fine to work on establishing habits and using methods to teach your children to stay in their own beds. It doesn't mean your children are any less loved. It doesn't mean that they're insecure, detached, which are some nasty words that get thrown around. I can promise you my children are very securely attached and very much loved, and they know that. So just don't beat yourself up. Realize that you're doing a good thing for your child, and I hope this was helpful. It does take time. It does take hard work. It's not an easy solution. Some children are a lot more stubborn than others. My second was a lot more stubborn than my first. I've always transitioned my children from cribs to big beds around the 13 to 15 month range. I just find it easier to do it then. Other children stay in cribs until they're past the age of 3. Neither way is right or wrong. It's just whatever suits your family. I hope you found this helpful, and I'm going to stop rambling. Get the thumbs up button if you did, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.